Everyone wants to be strong, but no one wants the pain. Everyone wants success, but they look for escape when pressure hits. Everyone talks about discipline, but they surrender at the first temptation. But there are people. They're different. They don't break when life punches them in the face. They don't shake when pressure crushes their shoulders. They don't negotiate with themselves when their body begs for rest. While the majority is searching for motivation, they've already completed their third workout of the day. While the majority is making plans, they're executing. While the majority says, "I'll start tomorrow," they started 6 months ago and haven't stopped since. Jocko Willink said, "Discipline equals freedom." Most people think discipline is chains. They know it's the door to freedom. And that's when we realize there's a level of mental and physical strength that, when achieved, people don't just become strong, they become unbreakable. Nothing can shake them, nothing can break them, nothing can stop them. If you're tired of always feeling weak, always quitting halfway, always being afraid of challenges, this video will show you the path a Japanese warrior walked 400 years ago and how you can do the same today. Before we begin, comment below, what's your biggest weakness, mental or physical, that you want to eliminate? Part 1. The fall. You've probably met someone like that. Someone who, when you look at them, you think, this is someone who's going to make it. Someone for whom everything seems too easy. Someone for whom success seems destined. A few years ago, in a coffee shop downtown, the kind of place startup people like to work, I met my college friend again. We were in the same department, pulled all-nighters on projects, shared crazy dreams about changing the world. He was always the brightest in the group. That time we met, he had just received an offer from a big tech company, 6-figure salary, not counting stock options, a penthouse apartment on the 42nd floor overlooking the entire city, a Tesla Model S parked in his private garage. Everyone looked at him like the golden boy of the millennial generation, proof that hard work pays off. He talked about his startup plan with the confidence of someone who'd already seen the future. His eyes lit up every time he mentioned the product vision, how it would disrupt the entire industry. Investors, partners, talents, everyone wanted to be near him, wanted to be part of that rocket ship. Every weekend there were networking events, pitch meetings, dinners with people who matter. His phone constantly buzzed with messages, emails, calls. Wherever he stood, he was the center of attention, a natural leader people instinctively listened to. Then, 18 months later, I met him again. Same coffee shop, but he was no longer the same person. The startup was dead. $2 million from investors burned through hopeless pivots and mistimed team expansion. His closest co-founder, the person he called brother from another mother, had copied all the IP, taken the code base, and launched a competitor with the exact same idea. He went from CEO with 30 employees to unemployed with an unexplainable resume gap. Savings vanished in legal fees fighting the co-founder, then settling because there wasn't enough money to fight anymore. The penthouse city view was now a studio apartment in a neighborhood where you heard gunshots at night. Meals were no longer Michelin restaurants. Now it was 99-cent instant ramen from the corner store 3 times a day. Why did it happen? Because he trusted people. Trusted in the naive way of those who've never been stabbed in the back. The co-founder was his best friend, so the contract was signed on a napkin. No lawyer, no vesting schedule, no protection clauses. Friends don't need contracts. The words he told me when I advised him to be careful. And when everything collapsed, he wasn't ready. When pressure came, he panicked. Meetings became disasters, decisions became mistakes, composure became chaos. Every night staring at the ceiling until 4 a.m., waking up not wanting to open his eyes. His body had never been trained for stress. His mind had never been prepared for crisis. Then the consequences came. His friends? Suddenly, they were busy. Calls went unanswered, texts seen but not replied to. 500 LinkedIn connections, but when he needed help, not a single message was returned. Success has many friends. Failure is lonely as hell. Mornings he worked as a barista at Starbucks, afternoons delivering food for DoorDash, evenings standing guard at the building where he used to pitch investors inside. No job was enough to cover the bills. His existence drifted from gig to gig, no anchor, no direction. At that moment, looking into his eyes, I saw someone completely lost. He looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man looking back. Every decision now carried fear. Fear of being betrayed again, fear of failing again, fear of trusting again. His mind was like a boat in the middle of the ocean, no compass, no rudder, just drifting with the waves. That was when he hit rock bottom. And that was also when the real story began. Part 2. The Struggle. One night, as he was scrolling through spam emails in his inbox, mostly bill reminders and job rejection letters, a subject line made him stop. "Let's talk." From his old mentor? The person who had guided him in college? The person he respected most? "I heard what happened. Let's meet. I can help." 3 short sentences, but enough to ignite hope for the first time in months. He thought this was the turning point. He opened his old laptop, started sending emails. 47 emails to former colleagues, investors, mentors, anyone who had ever said, "Let's keep in touch." He prepared a presentation about his comeback plan, about lessons learned, about why this time would be different. He believed, or desperately believed, that his network would be his salvation. That if just one person said yes, everything would turn around. The first week, he received a few replies. A few vague promises like, "I'll see what I can do," or "Let me check with my team." He clung to those words like a lifeline. The second week, radio silence. His inbox contained only promotional emails and LinkedIn notifications about other people getting promoted. The third week, polite rejections started arriving. "Not the right time. Budget constraints. We're going in a different direction." The meeting with his mentor took place in a different coffee shop, cheaper, less crowded. His mentor listened to his pitch for 20 minutes, then said something that felt like a slap. "You need to rebuild yourself first. I can't help someone who can't help himself." He sat there alone after his mentor left, coffee completely cold, realizing the truth he'd been avoiding. No one could save him. Loneliness wasn't about having no one around. It was when the people around couldn't, or wouldn't, help at all. But he hadn't given up yet. A few weeks later, while working as a barista, the job he hated most because he had to smile at customers while screaming inside, he started noticing patterns. Customer behavior, packaging waste, sustainability concerns. An insight emerged. A gap in the market for sustainable coffee packaging. Recyclable, affordable, scalable. "This is it," he thought. "This is my second chance." He dedicated 3 months to it, researched competitors, designed prototypes, tested materials. Used the last money from his old apartment's security deposit to make samples. Worked 16 hours every day, barista shift in the morning, design and research in the afternoon and evening. Lived on energy drinks and instant noodles because there was no budget for real food. Friends, the ones who remained, said he was crazy. But he saw light at the end of the tunnel. He secured an angel investor meeting, not a big name, but real money. Perfect presentation. He'd practiced 100 times in the mirror. Impressive prototype. functionality and aesthetics both on point. The investor nodded, smiled, said, "This is interesting. Let me think about it." The words every founder wants to hear. 2 weeks later, he scrolled through LinkedIn and saw an announcement. A new startup launching. Exact same idea. Same sustainable angle, same design aesthetic, even the same target market. The founder? An employee of that angel investor. He stared at the screen, hands going cold. They stole my idea. Again. This time, it wasn't even from a partner, but from someone he'd trusted with his future. He thought he'd found his breakthrough. Turned out, he was just delivering ideas for someone else to exploit. He thought, maybe I'm not meant for this. Maybe I should just accept reality. A small company needed an operations manager. Salary, $65K. Not high, but stable. Health insurance, 401K. Normalcy. Maybe I should just accept a normal life, he thought in resignation. The interview went well. He downplayed his startup background, emphasized operational skills. They hired him. He started from scratch, shed his ego, lowered expectations. Worked hard, on time, didn't complain. There to fit in with the culture. But his boss was toxic. The kind of person who blamed everything on others to cover his own incompetence. Colleagues gossiped. He heard through bathroom walls, through whispers in the break room. That's the guy who failed as CEO and now works here. Heard he lost millions. Must be humiliating. Every day, he swallowed that humiliation. Every day was a battle with the urge to walk out. 4 months later, he was called into the office. "We're letting you go. You're not a good fit for our culture." The official reason. The real reason? His boss felt threatened. Threatened by his background, by his skills, by the possibility that he might expose the boss's incompetence. Everywhere he went, he was suppressed. Everywhere he went, he was cast out. Resentment piled up in his chest, but he didn't dare speak, had no one to tell. Just tears alone in his car before driving back to the studio apartment. 32 years old, unemployed, broke. Betrayed 3 times, defeated on every front. He sat on the floor of his studio apartment, looking out the window at the glittering city, where other people were winning, celebrating, living their best lives. One question repeated in his head. Is this how my story ends? Part 3. The Awakening. The 6th night after being fired, he sat on the floor of his studio apartment, his old laptop open, screen glowing pale in the darkness. He was about to search how to start over at 32. A question Google had probably seen from millions of other desperate people. But his fingers moved across the keyboard, accidentally clicking on an article in the sidebar. The Samurai Who Never Lost. He clicked on it. Not because he was motivated, just because he was bored, to avoid having to face reality for one more night. The article was about Miyamoto Musashi, a samurai who lived 400 years ago in Japan. 61 duels. Never lost. Not once. He scrolled, skimmed, then one sentence stopped him. Your strength cannot depend on perfect conditions. He read it again, then read it again. Something clicked in his head. Not a Hollywood-style epiphany, but a slow, painful, brutal realization. How had he been living? He was only strong when there was money in his bank account, only confident when he had team support, only capable when conditions were perfect. When conditions disappeared, when money ran out, when the team left, when support collapsed, he completely fell apart. I wasn't strong, he whispered in the darkness. I was just lucky. And when luck ran out, I had nothing left. Musashi didn't have a penthouse, didn't have investors, didn't have a network. Just a sword and discipline. And he never lost. Because he didn't depend on anything except himself. He sat there, staring at the screen, realizing that the 3 betrayals weren't bad luck. They were consequences. Consequences of building a life on a foundation others controlled. Consequences of being strong only when circumstances were perfect. The decision didn't come from inspiration. It came from exhaustion. Exhaustion with begging others for help. Exhaustion with blaming circumstances. Exhaustion with waiting for the perfect moment. If I'm going to rebuild, he thought, I need to rebuild myself first. Not my career, not my network. Myself. He downloaded The Book of 5 Rings, the book Musashi wrote before he died. Read until 3 a.m. Didn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. Because for the first time in months, he saw a path. Not a path to success, but a path to strength that no one could take away. Part 4. The Forging. The next morning, 5:47 a.m., he woke up. No alarm. His body still ached from stress and malnutrition, but his mind was clearer than it had been in months. Musashi wrote, "Have no preferences. Do not depend on any particular weapon." He understood now. Dependency was weakness. He had depended on the gym to work out, and when he didn't have money for membership, he stopped training. Depended on motivation, and when he didn't feel inspired, he did nothing. Depended on perfect conditions, and when conditions weren't perfect, he was paralyzed. No more, he thought. Day 1. He dropped to the floor, the cold, hard, dirty floor of his studio apartment. 20 push-ups. His body protested, arms shaking at rep 15, but he finished. No gym, no equipment, no excuses, just body and floor. This is the training ground now, he told himself. Day 2 through day 7, he repeated. 20 push-ups every day, anywhere, anytime. No specific time, no perfect setting, just one commitment. Never 0. Day 8, his mind started offering excuses. Too tired from the delivery shift. He wrote it down, then did push-ups anyway. Don't feel like it today. Wrote it down, did it anyway. What's the point? This won't change anything. Wrote it down, did it anyway. Each excuse was an enemy, and he defeated them one by one with action. Day 15, he had to go on a business trip, gig trip, delivering packages to another city. Small hotel room, cramped bathroom. He did push-ups between the bed and wall. Same commitment, different location. Day 21, he got the flu. His body felt like it was about to collapse. His old self would have skipped. I'm sick, I deserve rest. But Musashi's voice in his head. Practice must continue, regardless of circumstances. He did 10 push-ups instead of 20, but never 0. Day 27. The electricity was cut because he was late paying the bill. The apartment was dark as a cave. He did push-ups in the darkness, counting by breath. Week 4. There was an incident he'd never forget. During his delivery shift, he stopped at a gas station bathroom, did push-ups on the bathroom floor. Disgusting, dirty, but it didn't matter. Another delivery driver walked in, saw him, laughed. Dude, what the hell are you doing? He looked up, not embarrassed, not defensive. Training. Training for what? He didn't answer, because he didn't need to explain. They laughed, walked out. He continued. 15, 16, 17. 30 days later, his body was different. Not dramatically, but stronger. Chest broader, arms defined, not because of a perfect program, but because of consistency without conditions. Being broken was no longer an issue, because he wasn't building on external structures anymore. Being broke didn't matter, because training didn't cost a cent. But the real change wasn't in his body, it was in his mind. Week 5, he started applying another principle from Musashi, Heijoshin, the everyday mind. Your mind in battle should be the same as drinking tea. No excitement, no fear, just presence. He realized naivety wasn't a personality flaw, it was a consequence of emotional reactivity. He trusted his co-founder blindly because he was afraid of being alone. Signed contracts without lawyers because he was afraid of conflict. Believed promises because he was afraid of confronting uncomfortable truths. Musashi said, "Do not react to fear. Become someone who doesn't need to." He practiced. Every time an uncomfortable emotion arose, he didn't suppress it. He observed. Anxiety in traffic? Breathe. Notice the heart rate increase. Don't react. Anger when a customer was rude? Recognize the tension in his jaw. Let it pass. Fear when looking at his bank account? Notice the panic rising. Don't act from it. Week 7, the real test came. A new boss from another gig job, the guy managing the warehouse where he worked part-time packing, yelled at him in front of 10 people. "Are you stupid? I said stack them by size, not by color." Old pattern: freeze, sweat, stutter, murmur an apology, quit immediately. New pattern: he felt panic coming, heart racing, hands wanting to shake. But instead of reacting, he observed. My heart is racing. My hands want to shake. My face is hot. Just recognition, no judgment, no suppression. Then he spoke, voice clear, calm. "You're right. I'll fix it now." Not defensive, not aggressive, just a statement. The boss was confused. He expected a reaction, anger or fear. He got neither. The team was shocked. They expected drama. They got professionalism. He walked away, reorganized the boxes. In that moment, he realized, I just accessed Heijoshin, the mind that doesn't move. Week 9 through week 12, he escalated his training. Not just push-ups, added burpees, squats, planks, running. Not following a structured program, following a principle. Train until the body wants to quit, then train 5 more reps. When you think you're done, you're at 40%. Week 11, he ran at 5 a.m. before his delivery shift, a 5-mile route. Mile 3, his legs hurt. Mile 4, lungs burning. His body screamed, "Stop! You've done enough!" The voice in his head, the old voice, agreed. Just walk. No one's watching. It doesn't matter. But he remembered Musashi. When the body is weak, the mind wavers. When the body is strong, the mind remains firm. He ran for 10 more minutes, not because he was ambitious, to prove one thing. The body doesn't control the mind. The mind controls the body. In that moment, at mile 4.5, lungs about to explode, legs like cement, he realized, this is the transformation. Not physical, mental. The mind was no longer a slave to discomfort. Naivety disappeared. Because he had learned to observe others without emotional attachment, trust but verify, listen but question. Being unprepared disappeared because his body and mind had been forged in discomfort for 12 consecutive weeks. Part 5. The Unbreakable. Day 87. He scrolled through LinkedIn during his lunch break between delivery shifts. A notification popped up. His former co-founder, the one who had stolen his IP and betrayed him, had just announced a Series A. $10 million. Photos everywhere. Celebration, press releases, congratulations from hundreds of people. His old self would have shattered. Rage, jealousy, bitterness to the point of not being able to breathe. He felt all those emotions rising, but instead of drowning in them, he closed the laptop, dropped to the floor. 50 burpees. While doing them, he observed, "I feel betrayed. Yes, that's there. I feel like a failure. Yes, that's there too. But does that change what I need to do today? No." 50 burpees later, the emotions were still there, but they no longer controlled him, no longer dictated his actions. Just sensations passing through, like clouds across the sky. He remembered another Musashi principle, Hyoho. Do not fight to win, fight not to lose. Don't try to impress, don't try to prove. Just simply, no mistakes. Show up on time, deliver on schedule. No drama, no excuses. The following week, a manager from one of his gig jobs called him back. "You're the most reliable delivery guy we have. Always on time, never complain, never mess up. Want to be supervisor? $3 more per hour, set your own schedule." Not because he was brilliant, because he had no weaknesses. Musashi was right. Reliability beats brilliance. Day 95, he did something radical. Stopped counting training days. Stopped celebrating milestones. Stopped posting anything about his progress. Deleted fitness apps. Deleted social media apps. Eliminated all external validation. Musashi wrote, "Sutemi, abandoning the self. You are not your successes. You are not your failures. You are simply the continuous practice." He tested this principle. 1 week without checking social media. 1 week without telling anyone about his training. 1 week living as if no one was watching. Discovery. When there was no audience, practice still continued. When there was no validation, discipline still remained. "I'm not doing this to become someone," he realized. "I'm doing this because this is who I am now." The wavering disappeared, because he no longer needed to anchor to external factors. Stability didn't come from circumstances. It came from practice. Weeks 15 through 16, the transformation was complete at a level he didn't expect. He was no longer someone who practices discipline. He became someone who cannot be undisciplined. The difference was subtle but profound. Before, "I need to train today." Effort required, choice involved. After, "Training is what I do." No effort, no choice. It's identity. Day 120, he woke at 4 a.m. No alarm. His body automatic. No thinking, no deciding. His body automatically started the routine. Training, meditation, cold shower, prep for work. No hesitation, no negotiation. Like breathing. You don't decide to breathe. You just do. Day 125, the phone rang. Unknown number. He picked up. "Hi, this is Sarah Chen, CEO of TechVantage Solutions. I heard about what happened with your startup. I also heard you've been different lately." He said nothing. Let the silence hang. "We need an operations director, someone who can handle pressure without breaking, someone reliable. I'd like to talk." The interview wasn't in a fancy office, coffee shop, casual. But the questions weren't casual. "What if we lose our biggest client tomorrow?" Old self, panic, creative excuses, over-promising. We'll pivot, we'll innovate, we'll... New self, calm, clear. I'd assess the damage, inform the team, activate backup plans, and execute. No drama, just solutions. What if your team turns against you? Old self, defensive, emotional. That won't happen because I'm a great leader. New self. Then I continue the work. People's opinions don't change the objectives. Sarah studied him. You're not trying to impress me. No. Why not? Because I'm not here to win. I'm here not to lose. If you hire me, you won't get charisma. You'll get reliability. That's all I can promise. Silence. Long. Uncomfortable. Then, you're hired. You're not the most charismatic candidate we interviewed, but you're the most unshakable. 180K base plus equity. Start Monday. Musashi was right. Reliability beats brilliance. 6 months after working at TechVantage, he was no longer the same person in every aspect. The transformation. From a broken 32-year-old unemployed and desperate to an operations director leading a 50-person team. Not luck, not connections. Through the path of eliminating weaknesses. I didn't add strength, he told his mentor, the same mentor who had refused to help months before when they reconnected. I removed everything that made me weak. The resurrection. Studio apartment to downtown loft, delivery routes to executive meetings, panic attacks to unshakable under pressure. But the resurrection wasn't about status. It was about essence. He wasn't a successful person trying not to fail again. He was a person who cannot be broken anymore. The mastery. 180-day streak, never broken. His body no longer resisted discipline. His mind no longer wavered in crisis. Musashi trained for 30 years, he thought when looking back on his journey. I'm just beginning. The liberation. No longer afraid of betrayal, because strength didn't depend on others' loyalty. No longer afraid of failure, because practice continues regardless of outcomes. No longer needing validation, because identity wasn't built on external recognition. Musashi's final words, I regret nothing, I fear nothing, I desire nothing. Now he understood. Not as philosophy, as lived experience. The legend. Colleagues called him the robot. Not an insult, an observation. How do you never break, they asked when crisis came and everyone panicked but he remained calm. How do you stay so consistent? He didn't explain, because those who understand don't need explanation. Those who don't understand, explaining is useless. But there was a side effect he didn't expect. People started avoiding him, not because of arrogance, not because he was rude or mean, but because his presence was uncomfortable. When you eliminate fear, hesitation, the need for validation, you become a mirror. People looked at him and saw everything they weren't, saw every excuse they made, saw every dependency they clung to, saw every weakness they refused to address. And that hurt. That mirror hurt like hell. He didn't care, because he wasn't doing this for them. He was doing this because this is who he is now. Part 6. The Complete. 1 year after day 1 of his journey, he sat in his office on the 38th floor, view of the city. The same view as the penthouse years ago, lights twinkling, traffic flowing, life happening below. But he was no longer the same person, no longer the golden boy with everything handed to him. No longer the broken man drowning in desperation. The difference? Years ago, he had everything. Penthouse, Tesla, 500 connections, startup funding. But fragile as glass. One blow and everything shattered. Now, he had less in terms of material things, but unbreakable. Everything I had before could be taken away, he thought as he looked out at the city. What I have now cannot. The company could fire him tomorrow. The market could crash. The economy could collapse. Everything could be lost. Impermanence is the nature of life. But practice would continue. Discipline would remain. His mind would stay still. Because those things didn't depend on circumstances. They were who he is. Weekends no longer had networking events with hundreds of people. No more parties with friends he didn't really know. Just a few people, 3, maybe 4, people he was truly close to. And he smiled thinking about that. Not a bitter smile, but genuine. "Finally, I understand," he whispered. "Strength that depends on crowds is no strength at all." 500 connections didn't save him when he fell, but discipline, practiced alone, in silence, without an audience, rebuilt him completely. "I walk alone," he stood up, looked out at the city one last time before heading home. "But I walk unbroken." Somewhere, 400 years ago, a samurai wrote in a cave, "I regret nothing." Today, a man in Silicon Valley understands those words, not as philosophy read in books, but as truth lived through pain, through betrayal, through 180 days of relentless practice. Not because life is perfect, but because he's complete. The invitation. Miyamoto Musashi died at 62, alone in a cave, writing. No money, no title, no followers. Just a brush, ink, and final thoughts. But he had something that no one, not the emperor, not an army, not fate, could take away. Complete mastery over himself. You don't need 400 years like Musashi's legend. You don't need 62 years like Musashi's life. You only need 180 days. 180 days to eliminate weaknesses instead of adding strengths. 180 days to train a mind that doesn't waver. 180 days to become unbreakable. The question isn't, can you do it? The question is, will you? There will be pain. There will be loneliness. There will be moments you want to quit. But on the other side of those 180 days is a version of you that nothing can break. A version that, when others look at, they think, how is that even possible? If this video resonates with you, subscribe to see other transformations. Comment below the first weakness you will eliminate, not improve, but eliminate completely. And remember, strength that scares people is the only strength worth having. 180 days from now, who will you be? Someone still making excuses? Or someone that nothing can break? The path is clear. The choice is yours. See you on the other side, where the unbreakable live.